Pause the game, please.
That's true.
Okay, this is a 2 mod. We're done at 10 after, right? So we have about a half hour-ish. My goal is to start our discussion on the Vietnam War and then maybe visit your paragraphs for your Vietnam paper. Finally, we're actually learning the content about which you're writing your paper. It's kind of nice to know about what you're talking about as far as the writing of your paper is concerned. That will help you kind of formulate your opinion. It is quite probable that some of you will change your mind about the American decision to participate in the Vietnam War based on stuff you'll learn in class today and over the next couple of days.
America.
All right, so can we put our phones very away?
How away?
Far be it for me to think that if you're on your phone, you're off task. I'm sure you're on task. Okay. So we're looking at a map of Vietnam, just as this might sound like a bit of a repeat because it's very similar to Korea in that Vietnam is located in a similar area, Southeast Asia. Here's China, so it's just under China. Korea's right about here. So it's the same basic area. And Vietnam was once under the control of France. It was a French colony for a while. And after World War II, during World War II, the Japanese conquered it. And then after World War II, it was split, just like Korea. So there was the communist north of Vietnam and the non-communist south of Vietnam. Does anyone remember what the line was in Korea? What was the dividing line, the number?
49.
Which parallel?
34.
38. 38th parallel, right? Well, in Vietnam, it was the 17th. Or 18th. 17. I think it was 17. So just to give you some perspective here, here's 18, here's 14. So right about there, they drew a line. North was under the control of the communists of Korea, and South was under the control of, well, we'll just call them the non-communists, because we're not really sure what they were, but we do know what they weren't. They were not communists. It doesn't really tell you what they were about, though. Okay?
That's true.
Well, remember, during the Cold War, the Americans had a stated goal of preventing the spread of communism. Can someone remind me? Very good. What if there were American-owned businesses in that country? If the country becomes communist, then those American-owned businesses become nationalized. There it is. What I'm now telling you is that there were American-owned businesses in Vietnam. Vietnam is a producer of certain natural resources, tin, rubber, and the United States is the leading consumer of tires. This is even true today. We are a nation of cars. We need tires. Well, you're looking at one of the suppliers of the materials necessary for tires.
Optional.
As a result, one of the stated goals of the United States during the Cold War is to stop the spread of communism. Okay. Here's the reason. We want to protect our business interests. We want to be the top dog. We want to be the king of the mountain. It's our turf, right? If you're communist, you're no longer our turf. And did you step on my yard? Get off my yard. Did you rub my lamp? Okay. Any questions here?
Yeah.
Basically, the basic idea is the United States had the express goal during the Cold War of stopping the spread of communism because we do not want to lose American businesses that happen to be located in your country. So we're going to not allow that to happen. Just a brief little history lesson of Vietnam. Here's Vietnam. Korea's way up here. But still, we're talking about an area that Japan conquered during World War II. So just a brief little history lesson. At one point, Vietnam was a French colony. Even today, a significant portion of Vietnam, the Vietnamese, are Catholic. And you might think, what does that have to do with the French? Well, who do you think introduced Catholicism to Vietnam? The French. Okay. A significant portion of Vietnam speaks French. Well, now you know why. Okay. During World War II, the Japanese successfully invaded Korea, part of China, but also Vietnam. And does anyone remember, what was the justification the Japanese used when invading Vietnam?
Liberation.
Liberating. We're liberating you from the white man. Don't look at us as conquerors. look at us as liberators. Does that sound familiar, by the way?
Nah.
It should, because it's exactly what the U.S. uses often when the U.S. invades. We're not here to take you over. We're here to free you from, during World War II, the Nazis.
F-18.
During the Spanish-American War, we invaded the Philippines. Our justification was, relax, Filipino people. We're here to free you from the evil Spanish. That's what the Japanese said. Don't worry, Vietnamese. We're not here to conquer you. We're here to liberate you from the French. Now, if you were to ask the Vietnamese, they didn't quite buy it. Okay, Japan loses. After Japan loses, in a moment of incredible irony, in a moment of incredible hypocrisy, the French say, we want it back. This is after World War II. Does anyone understand why I say the French were being a bit hypocritical?
Because they defeated Nazi Germany, which was an
Very
evil
good.
place taking over people.
Very good. The French were the recipient of the German invasion, and the French during World War II were saying to the Germans, hey, you can't control a country that's not Germany. That's not le faire. And then after World War II, the French say, le back to Vietnam. Le. Right? Hypocrites. Le. And the Vietnamese were the ones who pointed it out. How can you justify your attempt to reconquer a colony when you just got done fighting a country, Germany, that tried to take you over? You are hypocrites. And by the way, this is a delicious moment of irony. Guess who the Vietnamese asked to help the Vietnamese against the French?
The U.S. Russia.
The United States. Hey, U.S., help us. You should read the Vietnamese Declaration of Independence. I'm not kidding when I say that they laid the U.S. Declaration of Independence down here and then they copied it, but where it said United States, they changed it to Vietnam. The Vietnamese Declaration of Independence declares that every man has the right of three things.
Life.
Liberty and the pursuit of happiness.
Gee, that sounds familiar. Right? Now, the U.S. is in a bit of a pickle here because, yes, we want you to be independent, but you're communists. And I just got done telling you on this slide that we had a stated policy goal of not allowing communism to spread because it was a threat to us. So please understand that our foreign policy during the Cold War was less based on what's good for you and more based on, is it good for us? Yes, it's good if you're an independent nation, but what's better is if there are American-owned businesses there.
What if you think or
Understand?
something?
Okay.
Wouldn't it better have an
So we looked at this
Southeast
already.
Asian?
So what I'm briefly addressing now is the war where France attempted to reconquer Vietnam after World War II. So World War II is over. The French say, let's take back what was rightfully ours. The Vietnamese accuse them of being hypocrites. And there's a war between the French and the Vietnamese. Okay, that's what this is. The Vietnamese were led by this person, Ho Chi Minh. Ho Chi Minh is to Vietnam what George Washington is to the U.S. The founder of the country, the father of the country, a person from said area fighting against a European power. That's George Washington. A person from the area fighting against a European power, declaring independence,
What is communism?
basing his declaration on life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, self-rule, self-determination, the belief, by the way, again, am I talking about the American colonies or am I talking about Vietnam? The belief that the European country was exploiting, taking resources from said area for their benefit and the area's detriment. Both, right? Both.
They're communists.
The French had a superior weaponry. The French had jets. The Vietnamese don't have jets.
But China
You're
has
exactly
jets.
right, by the way. They had trees. In 1954, this is the Vietnamese victory over the French. The Vietnamese defeated the French in the culminating battle. Are you aware that during the American participation in the Vietnam War, there were huge protests in the U.S.? Did you know that?
Uh-huh.
One of the largest in the nation was in Madison. It was enormous. Another huge one was on the campus of the U of M. Anyone ever heard of this company called Honeywell? Honeywell is based in Minneapolis. They make weapons. And a huge protest against Honeywell took place in Minneapolis. A building in Madison was blown up during American protests. Well, we're not the only ones. There were French in France, that's redundant, who protested the French participation in the Vietnamese War. And here's where it gets messed up. There was a group of people working in a French factory that made grenades. Follow me? And they sabotaged the grenades. They made it so when the French soldier is taking the grenade out and pulled the pin, all he pulled out was a little note. And he read the note and said, "Dear French soldier, I think what you're doing is wrong. Please die." And it didn't blow up. It didn't ignite. And the French soldier was like, "Le crap. We are in le trouble." Okay. The Vietnamese win. The agreement. The French said, "All right, we'll withdraw if." And the agreement said this. France would be divided at the 17th parallel.
Yep.
Vietnam would be divided at the 17th parallel. The North, you pick your champion. You pick your person. The South will pick our person. So the French are not abandoning completely. They're saying, look, we'll leave, but you got to agree to let the South have their champion, and we'll have an election, and there'll be a winner. But the North will choose their nominee. The South will choose their nominee. There'll be an election, and whoever wins will become the leader of this new independent country called Vietnam. The North chose their champion, George Washington wannabe, right? The South picked, what difference does it make? You're going to lose. Right? Imagine if George Washington came back to life today, right? And let's just say he gets the nomination of the Purple Party.
Purple.
I'd make a bold prediction that George would win. And the other candidates would be, what difference does it make? You're running against George Washington. I'm telling you that this guy, whoever this guy is, had no chance. He had no chance of winning because you're running against the guy that defeated the French. He had no chance. But still he ran. His name was Dien Dien Dien. That was his name.
What was that again?
Dien Dien Dien.
Is that right? All right.
Allow me to describe to you Dien Dien. Vietnam is a very poor country. This guy was a millionaire. Great. Vietnam is a country of Buddhists. This guy was a Catholic. This might sound redundant, but I mean this. Vietnam is a country of Vietnamese, as in people who lived in Vietnam. This guy lived in New Jersey. And he ran for the presidency of Vietnam. Well, at least he was supposed to. He decided not to bother. Okay? He declared South Vietnam an independent country. He knew that had he run, he'd have lost. And by the way, he would have lost. But he decided, I'm just going to declare South Vietnam an independent country. I'm the leader. And guess who backed him up? The U.S. did. So understand, the French left and we jumped in and supported a government. And Garrett and I were having this conversation this morning. What kind of government was it? It was a puppet government, right? He wasn't the leader. He's the puppet. Me, 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 me. The puppet leader, the puppet master was the U.S. We were the ones propping him up. Right? He wasn't popular in South Vietnam. The South Vietnamese hated the guy. How in the world did he hold power? The U.S. U.S. military propped him in
That's how you do it.
Okay. So he refused to have an election. He declared South Vietnam an independent country. The French are out. The U.S. starts supporting this guy with weaponry, a few military advisors, pretty shallow participation early on. Okay. Let's keep going. How many of you have ever heard of the Viet Cong? How many of you could tell me who the Viet Cong were? Give me a definition. Go ahead. You say they were North Vietnamese. Silver medal. Second best possible answer.
They were
the treaty. They were South Vietnamese.
They were South Vietnamese. Okay, let's go back to this. This guy declared himself the leader of South Vietnam. Do you think the South Vietnamese said, yay?
no.
No. But what are they supposed to do? The military, the South Vietnamese military, is backing the guy. What's that called when you form a resistance movement of non-military? Anyone know?
Rebellion.
Yeah, well, that's true, but who are those people? What do we call them?
Terrorists.
Terrorists.
Partisans. Rebels.
Rebels, militia, these are all accurate. They're called guerrillas. Guerrillas. This is guerrilla warfare. Guerrillas, as you know, flirt. Today's a big day. It's Valentine's Day. Male guerrillas flirt by, hey guys, when you smile, you know, biology suggests that when you smile, you're trying to make girls think you're hot. Gorillas smile with their bottom teeth only. And guys, when you suck your gut in, what you're doing is you're telling girl, I'm in shape. But gorillas suck their gut in by pushing their gut out. And then they stand like this and they smile. And then what they do is they hit their chest as they're walking around to make the female gorilla think, wow, that's one hot gorilla. And you see the Viet Cong, I'm on the wrong slide. The Viet Cong adopted that strategy. So picture thousands of Viet Cong coming out of the jungle like this. And all the girls are like, I want that. I may have made up part of what I just said. The important thing is that the Viet Cong are not soldiers. They are South Vietnamese, regular citizens who don't like their leader, this guy. They don't like it. So they're going to try and overthrow him on their own. They create a resistance movement. They're taking on the South Vietnamese military. But they're not military. I mean, of course, they have guns and they have training and all that, but they're not official military. They're the Viet Cong. Okay? I'll explain this picture in a minute, and I'm almost done. Diem, the leader, was a very unpopular leader. Very unpopular. He didn't address some of the problems of South Vietnam. He's this millionaire. Vietnam's very poor. He didn't help it out. And so many poor people formed a group called the Viet Cong. This picture, how many of you have ever seen this picture before? Yeah, it's a pretty amazing photograph. This fellow is a Viet Cong member. He's a member of the Viet Cong. He's been captured, and he's cuffed, and he's been taken to this person, who is a general in the SVA. From now on in this class, I'm going to refer to the NVA and the SVA and the USA. And SVA means South Vietnamese Army. He's been taken to the South Vietnamese Army general, told, hey, this guy's a Viet Cong member. The general immediately takes out his gun and shoots him in the head. Just like that. No trial, no conviction. The American who took the picture said he reacted to the sound of the gunshot by accidentally kind of pressing the button on his camera. Back in the day, cameras had buttons. Long ago. Anyway, it's an amazing shot. I mean, and obviously the guy died. This is who the U.S. was siding with. Yeah. Right? I mean,
Well, if you wait.
symbolically, right? We were siding with the South Vietnamese army.
Better dead than red.
Okay.
Can't waste time with a trial.
Yeah,
So here's our definition.
I'm sorry.
The Viet Cong are South Vietnamese communists. And they fought using guerrilla tactics, right? Beating the chest, stomach out, bottom teeth smiling, approaching your enemy.
In the trees.
I don't know. Why doesn't when's our next boys basketball game? How about running out into the gym like that? Girls, huh? Girls basketball. Come on. It's either that or the way they come out in West Side Story. That would be sweet, right? Here comes our girls basketball team, and you're like, so.
Okay, you gotta get that intimidation factor.
Right. You've been sitting for a while. 2-minute break, and then we're going to revisit your paper. So retrieve all that stuff. We'll spend 10 minutes working on your paper, and then we'll call it a day.
Boy, they sure sound a lot like the Sons of Liberty.
They do, don't they? Nice synthesis.
You're right. My mom does synthesize when past events happen. Like my mom before that, and any mom.
Sam ate his sister in the woods.
What?
Sam ate his twin sister in the woods.
It's not true, and if it was, you have no
So
proof.
it's a thick boy. Okay, backside.
What have we done as far as this paper is concerned?
First two paragraphs.
We just started, right?
Yeah, we just started.
But we haven't gotten into how far did we get?
Have we got the context?
We got that far.
No, I don't think so. We got the claim, that's for sure.
We have
We got through. When was this?
We'll just back up.
Yeah, we got the claim. That's all I got.
Over the Cold War?
Yeah.
My goal is to at least come close to finishing the third paragraph that we're writing, which for you might be paragraph 3. It just depends. Oh, we're putting the game away now.
But you said we had 2 minutes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
That was 2 minutes ago. Your face. I win. No!
Oh!
Ben wins. I like how I said Ben wins, so you guys all decide to resume playing.
Well, you did say he wins.
I did say he wins. Let's attack this paragraph. Can I assume that you know which paragraph this is for you? Do you not know which paragraph this is? You do. Okay. I'm going with the assumption you have labeled this as paragraph number whatever it is. It might be paragraph 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. What is it for you? If you don't even know, then ask your neighbor or come find me during flex time. You've got to know which paragraph this is for you. This is the paragraph arguing that the U.S. was justified in participation in the Vietnam War because it helped us win the Cold War. So up here it says the second reason. That might not be true for you. It might be your first reason. It might be the first reason, and if you agree, you're just saying the first or the second. The first and the second, depending on your point of view. Reason the U.S. was justified because participation in the Vietnam War helped the U.S. win the Cold War. That's how your first sentence should go. If you disagree, if you are arguing that the United States should not have been in the Vietnam War, then this would be your second or third paragraph, depending. And your topic sentence should go something like this. The blank reason. Is it your first reason? Is it your second reason? Depends. The blank reason, some people claim the U.S. was justified, was because of their belief that it helped the U.S. win the Cold War. You see, if you agree with it, you are stating it as correct. If you disagree, you are stating it as other people's mistaken opinion. Notice the difference. Okay? When next I talk, you are done with your topic sentence.
I wrote that like 2 seconds ago. Sorry. Nothing.
How are we doing? We have about 5 minutes.
Sorry. Okay. Oh.
Thank you. Will you just give me a thumbs up as in you're ready to rock? You ready to move on? Okay, let me rephrase. Is there anyone not ready? Okay, I'll wait. For those of you who are ready, the next thing you're going to do is provide a little bit of context. Is there anything that you mentioned in the topic sentence that might need clarification so that Mr. Schultz, yes, even Mr. Schultz, would know what you're talking about?
Why are you always
Mr.
using
Schultz, I like picking on Schultz. Mr. Schultz might read this and say, what is this Cold War of which you are talking? Math. It might require you to spend a sentence explaining what the Cold War was. Right? That would be a necessary definition. That's one strategy. Another strategy might be just to provide a little bit of background. During the Cold War, the U.S. had a stated goal of preventing the spread of communism. Right? We just went over that today. That's a great sentence. Something where he can read on and understand the argument being made. Yes, sir. Very good. So she just asked, well, what was the Cold War? The Cold War was a time period after World War II where the Soviet Union tried to spread communism and the U.S. tried to prevent the spread of communism. How's that? That would be a perfectly good context sentence. I have some other suggestions up here. Maybe a sentence clarifying what's communism. Or what was the Cold War? Don't worry about the if then.
Who tried spreading communism?
Soviet Union.
So the Cold War was time period after World War II
When the Soviet Union tried to spread communism and the U.S. tried to prevent the spread of communism.
Yeah, thank you.
Very good. I'd say one more step here and then we can call it a day. So some of you are in the middle of your context and some of you are ready to rock on. Which document makes the argument that the U.S. won the Cold War because the U.S. fought in Vietnam? I really don't know the answer.
B.
Is it B? Okay. So we are going to go with document B. And who's our speaker of document B? Does it have a speaker?
The book.
It's the book? Okay. What was the name of the book again?
Vietnam and the Cold War.
Vietnam and the Cold War. Okay. So you would say the book Vietnam and the Cold War, underline that. Vietnam and the Cold War is underlined. Says, and then write out just the first and last words of the quote you're going to use from that document. Don't write it all out. What a waste of time. At the end, remember it's comma, quote, space, parentheses, the letter B, parentheses, dot. If you've accomplished that, it's been a good day. Don't forget how to walk around like a gorilla.
What are you using? What's the book called? Vietnam and the Cold War.
Really?
Yeah.
It's usually at
Flower room.
the end of the quote.
I feel like
The book Vietnam and the Cold War says, comma, quote, first word, dot, 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 last word, comma, quote, space, parentheses, B, parentheses, period.
that's up to you.
Was there a part of that paragraph that was especially good? Let's see. Yeah, first two sentences. Vietnam must be thought of not of as a war, but as a battle. The U.S. lost the battle, but won the war. What war? The Cold War. There it is. 1, 2, 3. The first 4 sentences of document B. Great quote. They're 4 pretty short sentences.
War.
Yep.
Well,
The letter B.
why shouldn't we just do this for our CIS papers?
That's college.
I know. It's a joke.
You're a joke.
Thank you.
Sorry, that was.
I
that was.
I very much know.
I didn't. That came out quickly.
My will is gonna say psych at the bottom of it, and then I'm gonna have a completely different will. Oh my god,
I don't think I wrote it out.
it'd be hilarious.
You're
Psych. Here's what's actually going down.
Just gonna make it the most insane thing ever.
Thank you.
Psych.
Have a great rest of
Most
your day.
bizarre leavings ever. 1%
Parentheses,
of
letter
my
B,
fortune
parentheses, period.
go to
It's at the very end of your phone.
holiday stations.
Holiday stations.
Yep.
You do what?
I'm just gonna bring my lunch in here.
Yeah, basically the homework